Hey everybody, Jeff Kassouf here with your Women's World Cup draw in review, and wow, what a Saturday it was for this Women's World Cup draw. The group of death came to life, came to being. United States, Sweden, Australia, and Nigeria. The four best teams from the respective pots that could have been drawn. Nigeria, not by number. New Zealand is ranked higher in the world, but an incredibly tough group for the Americans. Let's quickly run down the groups. Host Canada in Group A will take on China, New Zealand, and the Netherlands. Group B is Germany and not a whole lot else. It's Germany, Ivory Coast, Norway, and Thailand. Germany should cruise through that group. Group C, defending champion Japan. They have Switzerland, who's the first team to qualify out of Europe, and then they have Cameroon and Ecuador. Ecuador was the last team to qualify for the Women's World Cup. Group D, as we mentioned, United States, Sweden, Australia, and Nigeria. And then Group E is Brazil, certainly the favorites there and the controversial seed. Brazil is joined by South Korea, Spain, and Costa Rica. I like this matchup. I like this group for possibly sending three teams through. Remember that 4 of the 6 groups will send a third team through to the round of 16. And then Group F is getting a lot of attention. France, who is definitely a World Cup title contender. They're in there with England, who is another top team from Europe, and a very familiar team that is going to have something to say about France being the best team in that group and taking the top spot. France and England joined in that group by Colombia and Mexico. Colombia and Mexico playing each other in their opening games, their respective opening games, and winner of that could have a shot at going through. If that game's a draw, I think they're both probably in trouble, because that would be asking them to get points out of their matches against France and England. So, toughest group, pretty easy one. It's Group D, the United States, Sweden, Australia, and Nigeria. This is absolutely the worst group that could have been if you're the United States. I'm sure Sweden's thinking the same thing. Australia probably wondering what they did to deserve this, and Nigeria probably the same. Certainly the toughest group. As we touched on, the easiest group, Group B, Germany. This could come back to be a problem for the Germans, because it's such an easy group. I'm sure the Germans will probably laugh at this notion, and they'll say they're ready, and I'm sure they're ready, and they've been waiting for 4 long years for this, after being more or less embarrassed on home soil by going out in the quarterfinals to eventual champion Japan. Germany taking on a Thailand team that is not going to give them any trouble, taking on an Ivory Coast team that's not going to give them any trouble, and then Norway, perhaps a half-decent match there, but Germany should steamroll this group, and then, in that case, their round of 16 match would be against a third-place finisher in another group. So, really easy group for Germany. And then probably a really easy round of 16 game, and then the question becomes, when they actually get to the quarterfinals and they're going to have to face probably a very tough team, maybe another top 5 team in the world at that point, are they going to be ready for it? Or are they going to be, could they be complacent? Could they be not up to that speed because they just haven't faced it yet in the World Cup? So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Canada as host, huge ambitions. They've been talking about winning a World Cup on home soil. Lofty goal, probably an outlandish goal, and frankly this draw is going to give them a very tough quarterfinal opponent. They should be fine in the round of 16. I think that they should be fine in the group stage, though they will find some trouble against New Zealand, who knows, maybe the Netherlands as well, and maybe even China, but they're going to get a tough quarterfinal opponent. Could be the United States or Sweden even, depending on how things shake out, and I think if you're a Canadian expecting to see your team at BC Place in Vancouver, you're more of an optimist than I am. So Canada, a long way to go. We'll see how it goes. Overall thoughts on this, though, a very controversial thing that we have to definitely touch on. Brazil gets this seed over Sweden despite being behind them in the rankings. The funniest thing is that's not even the most controversial part of this. It's mind-boggling to me that the seeded teams were assigned groups. You would never see this in the men's game, and it completely compromises the randomness of the draw. FIFA Secretary General Jerome Valcke said during the draw that these groups, these seeded teams were assigned to groups based on where FIFA wants them to play. It's laughable. It's ridiculous. I mean, what that does is it allows you to dictate how the tournament's going to play out. You know that, for example, Group B, the way that lays out, Germany is going to win that group. It's a foregone conclusion, and now Germany in that 1B slot knows, or whoever has set this up knows that this 1B slot, which is now Germany, is going to play a third-place team from another group, and this scenario goes on and on throughout the 6 groups. So for these seeded teams to be placed by FIFA as opposed to randomly drawn is really ridiculous. But there's no change in that now, of course. So just another controversy to add to the list for FIFA. Predictions real quick. Going into this draw, really thought that France had what it takes and has what it takes to be a World Cup champion. This draw, if they win the group and if Germany wins their group, which I think Germany is assured, France very much the favorite, those two could end up meeting pretty early on in the knockout stage. But I'm going to stick to my guns here. I think we see a France-Japan final, and France, with their new coach, Philippe Bergeron, finally gets over the hump, and a bit of a surprise pick there, I guess. But look for France to maybe be the early pick from me. We'll see how the spring plays out, though, with all these friendly matches in the Cyprus Cup and Algarve Cup. But I'm going to go with France here. I'm going to stick to it, even though it's going to be a very tough road for them to win that World Cup.